In the spring and fall of 1981, a mysterious and unsettling event gripped communities across the United States, sparking fear and confusion. It began with strange reports of people dressed as clowns, behaving suspiciously near schools and playgrounds. What started as a few isolated incidents soon spread across Massachusetts, where the scare hit its peak. Concerned parents kept their children indoors, as police departments fielded numerous calls about these eerie sightings. These figures, often described as phantom clowns, were said to appear without warning, wearing face paint, unsettling smiles, and always near places frequented by kids. However, despite the alarming nature of the reports, no actual harm was ever confirmed, and no one was taken by these clowns. Still, the fear was very real. As sightings were reported in cities like Chicago and Kansas City, the phenomenon spread, igniting a wave of anxiety across the country. The sheer number of reports fueled rumors that began to circulate in local news and within neighborhoods. As Halloween 1981 approached, the tension grew, with people fearing that the mysterious clowns would return in full force on that night. Parents were cautious, walking their children in large groups or avoiding trick-or-treating altogether, turning what should have been a night of fun into one filled with unease. But just as quickly as the phenomenon began, it seemed to fade away. Despite the countless sightings and growing panic, no arrests were made, and no evidence was ever found to explain the strange occurrences. Some believed it to be an elaborate prank, while others speculated that it was an example of mass hysteria, where collective imagination turns fear into reality. To this day, the phantom clown scares of 1981 remain a mystery, blending urban legend with psychological phenomenon. Whether it was a case of widespread panic or something more tangible, the event left a lasting impression on those who lived through it, forever changing the way people viewed a once innocent figure. What had once been the playful image of a clown was now, for many, a source of fear and unease. The phantom clown scares are a reminder of how quickly fear can spread, and how sometimes the unknown can be far more frightening than anything we can explain. In 1981, Halloween night in the quiet town of Lewiston, Idaho, turned from a festive celebration into a haunting mystery that would grip the community for years to come. What began as a night of fun ended in tragedy when 3 locals mysteriously vanished, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and heartbreak. Christina Nelson, 21, and her stepsister, 18-year-old Jacqueline Brandy Miller, were excited for a night out. It was Halloween, a time for costumes, laughter, and celebration. The 2 young women left their home, planning to enjoy the evening together, unaware that they would never return. On that same night, Stephen Pearsall, a 35-year-old local man, also disappeared under equally baffling circumstances. Despite being from different circles, the 3 would become forever linked by the night's terrifying events. The disappearance of Christina, Brandy, and Stephen sent shockwaves through the town. Families and friends were left in a state of panic, fearing the worst. Extensive searches were conducted, with volunteers scouring the area for any signs of the missing trio. Flyers were posted, and their names dominated local headlines, but there were no leads. For years, their whereabouts remained a mystery, and hope slowly faded. Then, in 1984, a gruesome discovery shattered any lingering hope. The remains of Christina and Brandy were found in a remote canyon, far from where they had vanished that fateful Halloween night. They had been brutally murdered. The discovery confirmed what many had feared, but it raised even more questions. Who had committed such a heinous act, and why? As for Stephen Pearsall, his body was never found, and his fate remains unknown to this day. Investigators speculated that a serial killer might have been involved, and the town was gripped by the chilling possibility that the perpetrator could still be out there. Yet despite their efforts, no arrests were made, and the case remains unsolved. The tragic disappearances and murders of Christina, Brandy, and Stephen left a permanent scar on Lewiston, turning Halloween, a night of joy, into a somber reminder of the dark mystery that still haunts the town. The missing Halloween revelers of 1981 is a story that continues to send chills down the spine of those who hear it. What was supposed to be a fun-filled holiday became a night of fear, confusion, and heartbreak. Families still search for answers, and the memory of that haunting Halloween night endures as one of the most disturbing unsolved cases of the decade. To this day, the town of Lewiston is left wondering what truly happened to Christina, Brandy, and Stephen, and whether the person responsible will ever be brought to justice. In 1982, a terrifying and tragic event shook the nation, changing the way people viewed everyday products. It all began on the morning of September 29th, when 12-year-old Mary Kellerman passed away shortly after taking a common over-the-counter medication, Tylenol, for a sore throat. In the days that followed, 6 more people in the Chicago area lost their lives under similar circumstances after consuming Tylenol capsules. What authorities discovered sent shockwaves through the country. The Tylenol had been deliberately tampered with and laced with a lethal dose of cyanide. The discovery created a widespread panic, as people realized that something as simple as taking a pain reliever could be deadly. This tragic series of events, known as the Chicago Tylenol murders, unfolded just weeks before Halloween, a time of year when families stock up on candy and treats for trick-or-treaters. The timing of the scare heightened national fear. Parents, already on edge due to the Tylenol crisis, became concerned about Halloween candy safety. Rumors spread about the possibility of poisoned or tampered treats, creating a wave of anxiety across the country. Suddenly, the thought of store-bought products, something people had always trusted, became a source of worry. In response to the tragedy, significant changes were made in the packaging industry. Tamper-evident packaging became the norm, giving consumers more peace of mind about the products they purchased. Though the person responsible for the Tylenol tampering was never caught, the incident left a lasting impact on consumer safety and how people viewed seemingly ordinary items. The Chicago Tylenol murders not only changed the way we purchase and consume medication, but also fueled Halloween fears throughout the 1980s. Parents were more cautious inspecting candy before allowing their children to eat it, and the scare led to an era of increased vigilance during the holiday. Even today, the tragic event serves as a reminder of how a single act of tampering can change an entire nation's perspective on safety, transforming everyday routines into moments of caution. On Halloween night in 1986, in a quiet suburb of Los Angeles, an eerie and unsettling event unfolded that would forever change the way people viewed the holiday. Alan Webster, a devoted husband and father, was at home, enjoying the festivities and handing out candy to eager trick-or-treaters. As the evening wound down and the streets grew quiet, the doorbell rang one last time. Thinking it was a late-night visitor in costume, Alan opened the door, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Instead of a friendly trick-or-treater, a masked figure stood ominously on his porch. Before Alan could react, a sudden flash and a loud bang shattered the stillness of the night. Alan collapsed on his doorstep, unable to call for help. The figure disappeared into the shadows, leaving the neighborhood in shock and confusion. The unexpected tragedy stunned the community. Authorities were left searching for answers, with no immediate clues as to why this happened. There was no apparent motive, no sign of theft or any conflict in Alan's life that could explain such an act. Initially, it seemed like an unprovoked and random tragedy, a crime that no one could make sense of. As investigators dug deeper, however, they uncovered a dark and complex web of deceit. The incident wasn't random. It was a calculated plot, masterminded by none other than Alan's own wife, Diane Webster. But Diane wasn't working alone. Her close friend, Veronica Ruiz, had also played a key role. Driven by jealousy and personal motives, Veronica had manipulated the situation to remove Alan from their lives. But Veronica had no intention of carrying out the plan herself. She enlisted someone else, a woman named Karen Price, who had fallen under Veronica's influence. Veronica convinced Karen that she was doing Diane a favor, offering her freedom from an unhappy marriage. What was supposed to be a night of festive disguises had become the perfect opportunity to carry out their plan under the cover of Halloween. Dressed in a simple costume, Karen approached Alan's home, blending in with the evening's activities. She rang the doorbell, and in an instant everything changed. In the aftermath, Diane played the part of a grieving widow, hiding her involvement behind a mask of sorrow. But over time, cracks began to show. The police began to suspect Diane after uncovering her secret relationship with Veronica. As the investigation continued, the shocking truth came to light. The betrayal ran deep, with Veronica pulling the strings and using Karen to execute the plan. Realizing she had been manipulated, Karen eventually cooperated with authorities, shedding light on the true extent of the conspiracy. Both Diane and Veronica were arrested and brought to justice, their elaborate plan exposed for all to see. What began as a night of fun and Halloween festivities ended in tragedy, deception, and betrayal. The town, once known for its peaceful streets, would never forget the night when the celebration turned into a nightmare, leaving a mark that would haunt those involved for years to come. In 1984, Halloween carried an eerie shadow, haunted by the chilling memory of a tragic event that took place a decade earlier, a case that forever changed how parents viewed trick-or-treating. The story centers on Ronald Clark O'Brien, a man who would later become infamously known as the Candyman. His horrifying crime struck fear into the hearts of families across the country, especially on Halloween night. In 1974, Ronald O'Brien made a deadly choice that would send shockwaves through the nation. Desperate for money, he took out life insurance policies on his children, including his 8-year-old son, Timothy. On Halloween night, O'Brien handed his son a seemingly innocent piece of candy, a pixie sticks laced with cyanide. Timothy, unaware of the danger, consumed the candy after returning home from trick-or-treating. Tragically, within hours, Timothy fell gravely ill and passed away. Investigators soon discovered that the candy had been poisoned. The realization that a father could commit such a horrifying act against his own child stunned the community and spread fear across Texas and the entire nation. It wasn't just the cruelty of the act that terrified people, but the fact that it happened on Halloween, a night meant for fun, innocence, and family memories. Ronald O'Brien's plan was simple but monstrous. He aimed to collect on the life insurance policies, using Halloween as a cover to disguise the murder as part of the widespread candy scares. He even attempted to distribute other poisoned pixie sticks to neighborhood children, hoping it would divert suspicion away from him. Fortunately, none of the other children ate the candy, and O'Brien's plot unraveled during the investigation. The case quickly made headlines nationwide, creating widespread panic. Parents, already uneasy about the safety of trick-or-treating, became hyper-vigilant. By the 1980s, the lasting impact of this crime was clear. Families across America began inspecting Halloween candy with intense caution, worried that such an unthinkable act could happen again. Ronald O'Brien was eventually convicted and sentenced to death for his crime. His actions, motivated by greed, left a lasting scar on the tradition of Halloween, turning a once joyous holiday into a time of fear and vigilance. The tragedy of Timothy's death serves as a haunting reminder of how trust and innocence were shattered on that fateful night. The legacy of the Candyman remains one of the most chilling Halloween crimes in U.S. history, forever changing the way parents approach Halloween. What should have been a night of costumes and candy turned into a nightmare, casting a long shadow over the holiday that persists to this day.